I'm very pleased to be here today with you all to present on plastic packaging, and in particular focusing on plastic packaging as it relates to films and flexibles. So first of all, a little bit about the organisation that I represent. I'm here today speaking on behalf of the British Plastics Federation. We represent the whole supply chain in the plastics industry, and by that I mean everything from the polymer supply, the converter, right the way through to the recycler. So the whole plastics supply chain. We've got over 500 members, and that accounts for roughly 80% of the industry in the UK. As I said earlier, I'm talking today about plastic films and flexible packaging. And first of all, I wanted to start by putting it into perspective. In terms of the consumption of plastic waste, and of the total, plastic films represents 29%. Of the overall amount of plastic waste, it may surprise you to see that plastic waste is reducing year on year. And that's due to the great strides that the industry has made in lightweighting. This is not often presented that way by NGOs in particular, who will portray plastics waste as increasing. But in the UK, the story is quite different. In terms of the different forms of plastic waste, there are basically three types: primary, secondary, and tertiary. And illustrations of these are shown on the right-hand side. Primary can be in contact with food or non-food. Collation shrink and tertiary packaging plays an essential role in terms of the logistics chain, ensuring that loads arrive intact as they travel through the logistics chain. I'm now going to zero in on where films and flexibles are used in primary food packaging. I've thrown some examples on this slide. The amount of film in use can be a matter of grams for each pack, and you can be talking of microns of films in use. And the performance characteristics of each pack can be very different as to whether you're packaging crisps, whether you're packaging a cucumber, or whether you're packaging cheeses or meats, or indeed frozen goods. So in many cases, the films in use have to be designed for the application to ensure that food waste is minimized, and that they perform the job that they're needed to do to give the life to the product. Flexible film has played an important role in lowering climate change. Flexible barrier properties have played an important part in allowing that transition from frozen to chilled and ambient, due to the barrier characteristics that have been able to be built into the films themselves. This transition has enabled significant savings in packaging weight as films have become more common. For example, compared to a rigid container, even in plastics, you could be looking at a 70% saving. And obviously, if you were comparing the same pack packaged in glass, then the savings would be even greater. So compared to other alternatives, flexible films play a vital role in offering a lowest environmental and carbon footprint for packaging. And of course, when we've got the right collections and recycling infrastructure in place, those impacts will reduce further. Innovations continue to make packs more recyclable. And on the right-hand side, you'll see an example of this. Wet food retort pouches are probably one of the most difficult to recycle products. And now, through innovations, through platforms like CFlex, and through our members, we've been able to develop the same barrier properties without using the mixed materials that were in use before. And the result is a much easier to recycle pouch. What about recycled content? Clearly there's opportunities and there's financial benefits as well. Now we're seeing the introduction of the plastic packaging tax next year. But there are also challenges relating to the collection. In many cases, most household films, there is no present facility to collect these from the curb, from the household. There's also technical considerations when you're putting recycled content into a structure that is only microns thick. You've got to be sure that you don't end up having to increase the weight of the product and offset the benefit of putting the recycled content in there in the first place. And finally, there's regulations, and in particular, food contact regulations. As many people will know, presently, when it comes to polyolefins, if one was to use mechanical recycling, there are no solutions presently available to mechanically recycle plastic film and then re-include it in a structure that has food contact requirements. But that's changing, and there's lots of exciting developments. But if you want to learn more, we produced a guide a couple of years ago, and there's a link to the guide, which helps you navigate these challenges and opportunities as they relate to the plastic packaging sector. I touched on collection of films from households and mentioned that many councils just simply don't offer the service to collect these films at the moment. And on the left-hand side, you can see this in stark relief. Only 5% of all packaging films are presently collected from households, unlike those used in business, where the majority are collected and recycled. As a result, there's a huge opportunity there. And there's also a huge pent-up demand, with consumers wanting to see this material collected from households. Tesco ran a trial in 2020 for 4 months across only 10 stores. They were expecting to collect 12,000 tons. In practice, they collected 35,000 tons. What was even more exciting, they took that film and sent it to a chemical recycler who was able to recycle it back into a food contact application. The net result was some of the cheeses that Tesco were selling had that recycled material already included in the film, protecting that cheese. A true first in the UK. And we will see more to come in that space. Just to put where we are in Europe into perspective, here's the UK, one of the very few that does not presently collect films from households. I think this is shocking and a disgrace and something that we need to rectify. And I'm pleased the government has grasped the opportunity to do this and propose this in the recent consultation on consistent collections and in EPR. Because we desperately need to catch up with the rest of Europe in this space if we want to be a true leader in sustainable management of packaging. In the meantime, not wishing to wait until government has enabled consistent collections and EPR in 2023, 2024, a number of brands came together and launched a fund, and this was announced only last month. Those brands, Mars, Mondelez, Nestle, PepsiCo, and Unilever, were stepping in and making up for the situation that they saw as unsustainable, which was not to offer consumers the opportunity to recycle their flexible plastic films. A number of retailers have followed suit in offering the collection point to enable the consumer to recycle those films. And those include Sainsbury's and Waitrose, and others are launching initiatives as well, such as Tesco, who intend to offer the service across all their stores, and Co-op are likely to follow suit as well. The intention of this initiative is to encourage closed-loop recycling and recycling in the UK, but it's only a stepping stone until EPR is enabled, because not every consumer will be as dedicated and as willing to take those films back to the front of store collection point. A little bit about the different forms of recycling: mechanical, non-mechanical. Non-mechanical is the new kid on the block. Both together will expand the opportunities for recycling film in both food and non-food applications in the future. And both are seeing rapid expansion within the UK, especially chemical recycling, which is ideally placed to tackle mixed polyolefin structures, provide high quality, deal with high print coverage, and produce recyclate for polyolefins that can be put back into food contact applications and provide the opportunity of infinite recycling. As many may know, there are various forms of chemical and non-mechanical recycling. Feedstock recycling, depolymerization, and purification. Most of the activity at the moment is concentrated in the area of pyrolysis. And this is where we're seeing a number of UK companies starting up plants. This gives a quick overview of non-mechanical recycling plants that will be progressively opening from next year onwards. And if you total all the capacity up across the plans that these companies have through to 2030, you're looking at over 500,000 extra tons of recycling capacity that could be on stream in the UK. Not all of this will be dealing with films. Some of it will be textile, some of it will be PET, but the majority is going to be dedicated to the recycling of flexible films and polyolefin structures. To help highlight this, earlier this year we produced a recycling roadmap, and I'd very much advocate that you take a look at this if you want to learn more about the plans and the projections for the different forms of recycling. The net result over that period that's encapsulated within that report is we will see landfill almost completely disappearing when it comes to plastic. We will see much reduced dependency on exports and a significant expansion in both mechanical and non-mechanical recycling. So I mentioned the various consultations that have recently been published by government, and one is still open, and that is consistent collections. This is the opportunity to make plastics circular. This is the opportunity to ensure that a service is offered to all consumers for the collection of films. And I would urge you to join us in advocating that this be enabled as soon as possible to make plastic circular. Finally, I would like to say thank you for the opportunity of speaking today, and if any individuals want to contact me outside the seminar, you have my email address there.